I want to hear cannons. Downfield, pull up, ball to the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Those up with the head. Intercepted at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25, 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And then the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
34-20, your final score from Lambeau Field as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers emerge victorious over the Green Bay Packers and extend their record to 7-7, the first time this ball club has been 500 since, I believe, October. It's been a while. It has been a very long time, but as the playoff push continues for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they come up huge today. The offense in particular, probably the best game of the year for Baker Mayfield at the quarterback position. Chris Godwin, also a monstrous day. We'll talk about that and then some over the next hour or so. But welcome back to the Cannon Fire Podcast, live on YouTube today following a Buccaneers victory, which always is that much sweeter. I'm your host, Rhett Matthews, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Evan Wanish. Evan, how do you feel about that win today? Because, you know, I didn't pick the Bucs to win this week, and I thought I had a general idea in my head of what this game was going to look like. And just like they have all season, the Buccaneers completely diverted my expectations and come out big time to win this one on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I didn't pick them to win either. So it wasn't, and I saw a lot of people, not picking them. And look, the Packers were playing pretty good football despite the loss to the Giants in the previous week. And I was even talking to you, before the show. Obviously, we'll get some callers, but like, whenever this is like the most, this is going to be like the most Brady era type game review that we've had in quite some time. That like, yeah, like they. Like that offense kicked the defense's butt. Like the Bucs defense, we'll talk about it. There's room for improvement there. There's a lot to be desired with the Buccaneers defense. Because the Packers also moved the ball pretty well. It's just the Bucs offense moved the ball better. So there is room for improvement on the defense side of the ball, but like the offense just went out and just dominated. I mean, it's just seemed like the game was never in doubt just because you knew if the Packers scored, like the Packers defense wasn't going to be able to stop this Bucs offense today. And kudos to everybody, Baker Mayfield, Dave Canales, I thought called a great game. Rashad White, the offensive line struggled a little bit, but I think in the second half cleaned it up a good bit there. I mean, Baker really only had one play where he made a mistake, and that was on the fumble and just holding the ball too long, which you've seen. He's done that from time to time this season, but hopefully you can just be able to cut that out. But it was the only turnover, and that was key. So, I mean, like I said, Rashad White did his thing. They had zero answers for Chris Godwin. I mean, this Packers defense just had no answer for Godwin at all. And Evans was in a supporting role, but hey, in a supporting role, he called a touchdown. So, and then David Moore, obviously from basically out of nowhere, like with the burst and everything, really, really great play there. So like like the offense went out there, just did its thing, and that's easily the best. I mean, that's the best the Bucs offense has looked under Todd Bowles as head coach. The best. Even last year, they didn't look that good. Like they didn't look that dominant. I think they had 7 or 8 plays over 20 plus yards. So the explosive plays were there. We're never really in any third and long situations, and protected the football, and 34 points is what you're going to get.
Absolutely, one of the best days of offensive production we have seen in several years. And at the point of that fumble, because that's what people are going to talk about, is the Baker Mayfield fumble. That was a huge turning point for this game. Yeah. From that moment on, the game could have gone one of two ways. The Bucs could have allowed that to beat them and then allowed Green Bay to just continue on their way. But they didn't, and that was huge, especially from Baker Mayfield. We'll talk about his performance in the offense a little bit more in a bit. But if the Bucs do not win today, I think the biggest news of the day is going to be Devin White and his inactive status for this game in Lambeau. And we'll open up and we'll talk about that very quickly before we dive into the game. Only because it was announced about 30 minutes before kickoff that not only was Devin White going to be inactive today after practicing all week, but he was going to be a healthy scratch, according to Todd Bowles. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a smart man, but the writing is on the wall here enough for me to believe this is probably it as far as Devin White and his future in a Bucs uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really. And Todd Bowles is probably going to talk to the media. I'm sure. I'm positive he's going to get asked about it. But yeah, it's interesting that they made that decision. Now, I mean, there was something Rick Stroud said, I believe. It was a coach's decision, but also like there's a possibility that Devin White told them. That like told them like even though he practiced he wasn't quite ready to go, so but either way, I mean, that makes headlines, that makes headlines that he practiced fully and wasn't playing, and the defense, the Bucs are now 3-0 without Devin White in the starting lineup as their middle linebacker. And yeah, but like you said, even if Devin White does return, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. Like, it's pretty obvious that what's going to happen. Like, Devin White, as we've said for a while, like, and we're not the only ones that have said it for a while, but Devin White will not be back in 2024. He's not going to be back, especially with maybe Baker Mayfield needing a contract. If they retain Todd Bowles and they choose to keep Baker, like, I think they'd rather spend the money there. So I don't expect Devin White, to be back in Tampa Bay. I think this is the beginning of the end, pretty much, and we'll have to wait and see, but a massive win for the Bucs, obviously, and the defense, KJ Britt, I thought looked good again today. So, I mean, is that a long-term solution with KJ Britt? I'm not sure. I think Servase Dennis, if you're looking at who is the higher ceiling, that Dennis probably has the higher ceiling, but I do, kudos to KJ Britt for playing his butt off today.
Yeah, 8 tackles last week against Atlanta, and he filled in great next to Levante David today as well. One more thing I want to get your thoughts on as far as Devin White. People are obviously going to look at this as nothing more than a relationship that has turned sour between the Bucs and Devin White. I can't speak for what other guys in that locker room have to say about Devin White. I imagine most, if not all of them, have a ton of respect for him. He's a former team captain, 2019 first-round pick for Tampa Bay, but the fall-off that he has had since that 2020 season is really something that it needs to be studied. Like, I don't know. I don't know what really happened. I think, unfortunately, this is probably going to happen with a lot of younger players, and we did hear about it in 2021. I think Devin White started to believe his own hype to start that 2021 season. He ultimately got called out, as did the rest of the defense, when, after that one game, I think it was against Atlanta, he admitted that, sometimes it gets hard back there because sometimes these games are easy, and people have hated him ever since that quote, and it seemingly has not gotten any better for him since then. But I want to kind of address it from this point of view, as far as his effect on the Buccaneers franchise. A lot of people are going to be quick to say that, like, he's a bust, this was a wasted pick for Jason Light, and I don't think that could be further from the truth.
Yeah, I wouldn't go bust. I wouldn't say bust. Because
I still think he's a guy who could go play for another team and have a little bit of a career resurgence. Like, I think a change of scenery. He's just one of those guys. We've seen this in franchise history before. Like, I think he will have success elsewhere. Maybe not on the level he did at that 2020 playoff run, because many people touted him as one of the best linebackers in the league after that season. But I don't know. It's hard for me to sit here and bash the guy, considering how important he was to this team back in 2020.
Yeah, but I mean, and this is going to sound a little stupid, but it's like, oh, yeah, take away the dude's best stretch, and what is he? But, like, if you take away those playoffs, like, if you take away those 4 games, basically, like, what is Devin White? Like, he's a average linebacker that occasionally makes some plays, and I do think, like, yeah, the reason why you're not completely out on him, and why I don't, like, NFL teams, I don't think they're going to be completely out on him, is because the ceiling is still pretty high for a guy like him. I think that's another reason why I don't want to use the bust word. You can maybe use that with a guy like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka or like Logan Hall. Like, those guys are approaching that territory. I don't really want to go there with Devin White just yet, because I do feel that, like you said, he could probably go somewhere and have success. I don't foresee that being in Tampa Bay. I think that ship has sailed, and I think both sides, I think, are probably ready to move on. I think the Bucs are ready to move in a different direction, allocate that money to a different resource. And then also, I think Devin White's kind of, he was obviously sour by it. I mean, requesting a trade in the offseason, like, that obviously rubbed him the wrong way. And look, like, I'm not gonna fault any player for wanting money. Like, I'm not gonna fault him for wanting a big contract that he felt he deserved. Like, duh, I'm not gonna sit here and criticize him for that. But I think he could have gone about it a different way. I think he could have maybe been a little bit quieter about it, and gone about it a little bit more professionally than requesting a trade because you didn't get your way. Especially when the production doesn't quite match up. So I don't want to spend too much time with Devin White. He didn't play today. He didn't suit up for the Bucs today, and it's their biggest win of the season. Their most convincing win of the season, I think. So I don't really want to spend too much time on Devin White here, and that's why, like, we talked last week, right, about how, like, yeah, I get, the fans saying, "Oh, it's a win." You guys are complaining, like, yeah, because they weren't playing well. Like, against Carolina, they didn't play well. Like, they didn't deserve to win that game. Against Atlanta, they didn't play well. They didn't deserve to win that game. This game, though, they played well. They just played a good brand of football. Now, was it perfect on both sides? No. Like I said, this defense leaves a little bit to be desired for sure. But this offense was just fantastic today, and kudos to them and hats off to them because they were really, really good. So that's basically all I got on Devin White, though. The defense looked fine without him. KJ Britt has filled in pretty well, and yeah,
I agree.
Best of luck, I guess.
I agree. It is what it is. Let's move on and talk about the guys who did make an impact today for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll start with the offense. That monumentous day led by the quarterback, Baker Mayfield, 22 for 28, 381 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Of course, the lost fumble, which he had to bounce back from. But if you take away that fumble, might be the best game of Baker's career. Like,
it could be.
I don't want to overreact, but this is the first time in his career he finished with a 158.3 perfect passer rating, and he did it in Lambeau, where as a kid he got to watch his quarterback idol Brett Favre play Hall of Fame caliber football for many, many, many years. So if anybody's feeling great about this win, it's Baker Mayfield, and of course the Baker stands.
Yeah, well, and Baker Mayfield also, this from NFL CBS, Baker Mayfield became the first visiting QB ever with a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field with a minimum of 5 attempts. So making history there. So yeah, really, really good. And Green Bay is a tough is a tough place to play. Little update though, we said about on Devin White. Was that Todd Bowles in post-game to reporters said, this is from Greg Allman, said he made Devin White inactive today based on him saying he couldn't go today, said his foot was still sore. We'll see. We'll see if he practices fully next week, then there's not really much of an excuse. But yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield was just, phenomenal today. And, it just felt like they had all the answers, they had all the answers to the test. And like you said, besides one play, this could be up there for Baker Mayfield's best game of his career. And that's the type of game that you needed against a team that's not like, are the Packers the best team in the NFL? No, like they're pretty average, but like it's not like you're doing it against the Carolina Panthers, right? It's not like you're doing it against the worst team in the NFL. Like, oh, of course you do that. Like you went into Lambeau in December and were able to do that. So that matters. I mean, almost 400 yards passing.
Yeah. And on top of that, the Bucs allowed 5 sacks today. It was not the best day for the pass rush. And, Baker continued to play well through that. We've seen before where if an opposing pass rush can get to your quarterback and slow him down, we've seen him not necessarily bounce back in other weeks. But this week, even with the lost fumble, which led to points, the Buccaneers retake the lead. And even with the constant pressure, one of them being a costly sack for the Buccaneers later in the game, deep in Green Bay territory. A couple times today, he probably held onto the ball too long. Like, that's the biggest complaint. But, between an offensive line that was inconsistent, a pass rush that was in his face all day today, his best game of the year in a Buccaneers uniform by far.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's not even a question about it. So, it was really good. And like we said though, it's we're not really gonna. There's not much to say. He's like, yeah, he's really, really good. Like,
whenever the better the Bucs play, the easier the show is to do. Like, I don't know if you guys have remembered, but Evan talked about a Tom Brady style post-game show, and that's because, there's one game that I can think of in particular where Tom threw 5 touchdowns against the Dolphins at home.
Yeah.
And I think
there was that one against the Bears that they won by like 30. We're
right,
like, okay, like they kicked their butts. Like,
yeah, all of our post-game shows are usually like 30, 35 minutes long when that's the case. So it's not going to be quite as long of a show today, but we still have some calls to get to. We got 5 people waiting on hold. 3 of them have been there since the start of the show. We're going to get to you, I promise. The Bucs were much better on third down this week, and Chris Godwin was also a big part of that. 7 for 11 on third down conversions, and I'm pretty sure 6 out of 7 of those third down conversions were from Chris Godwin, who had a monstrous day. I was basically calling him Mr. Third Down today. Mr. Third Down Conversion today was what I was calling him over on the play-by-play broadcast on the Mr. Bucs Nation channel. Godwin had a season best, 10 receptions, 155 yards, did not find the end zone, but it doesn't matter. Like you said at the beginning of the show, this Green Bay secondary, they had no answer for number 14 out there today.
No, they didn't. And I mean, Godwin had 10, but the next guy had 4 with Mike Evans as far as catches go. So it was, the Chris Godwin show early and often. And I mean, just like you said, third down. No matter how long it was, like I remember there was after Baker Mayfield got sacked, there was a 2nd and 18. Boom, Chris Godwin for 20. Like it was just he was there when they needed him, and yeah, just huge, and he did everything but get in the end zone today. So when he's gonna put up that amount of yards and that amount of catches, I don't really care if you don't get in the end zone. It's astonishing to me that I believe he still only has 1 receiving touchdown on the season, but it is what it is. But Chris Godwin, just what more can you say? Like he was Mr. Clutch for him, and I mean critical third downs there, early in the game, late in the game, at any point during the game. Baker Mayfield found Chris Godwin there, and like you said about Baker Mayfield getting sacked 5 times. I thought the protection was pretty decent today. I did think that was a result occasionally of Baker holding the ball a little bit, and that's obviously, like we talked about, the one complaint that you had with his game today. But everybody on the offensive side of the ball, just this week was the week that they had all put it together. I mean, obviously since really that Houston game, like the offense has been consistently better, but it wasn't all there, right? And if it was they were moving the ball, they would turn the ball over. Or if they could pass the ball, they wouldn't be able to run the ball. Or if they could run the ball, that Baker Mayfield would throw 10 straight incompletions. It seemed like it all came together this week. And if they got Mike Evans 11 catches, Chris Godwin had 0. Like they had Mike Evans, only had 4 catches, but he had a touchdown. Like 57 yards still though. And got everybody involved early, often, and that's. Look, it's not all going to be that way, and the Bucs offense for the rest of the season probably not going to have another game quite that good. But for this game, it was just fantastic.
David Moore, 2 catches for 68 yards, a late touchdown to put the Buccaneers on top and put
a critical third down. I mean, that was on third down. So they don't get that. The Bucs are at midfield. You're probably not kicking a field goal there. Who knows what happens? It was 27-20 at that point. Yep. The Packers had just scored. You could be looking at a tie game there.
Mike Evans, 4 catches, 57, found the end zone. Rachaad White, 2 catches for 50 yards, one of them being a 26-yard scamper for the touchdown from Baker Mayfield. Running the football, he also had a solid day as well. 21 carries, 89 yards, averaging 4.2 yards a tote. Chase Edmonds had 3 carries for 13 yards, averaging 4.3. Rachaad White, another game in a row where he's got well over 100 yards from scrimmage. He was a facet today, and the Bucs kind of used him in the way that they have used him these last couple of weeks. You saw him get very, very heavy-handed late in the fourth quarter of this game, ultimately putting him away and taking the dive at the 10-yard line to prevent running the score up any further. He had a great day.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because around this time last year was when he was basically the starter. Like he took all the snaps away from Leonard Fournette. He was looking really good. And that's what people had hoped for, this coming into this season. And early in the season, it wasn't happening. And now, like, is this just going to be a yearly thing? Like, if it is, that's great for Rachaad White, but like, it's not really, star material. But yeah, I mean, he's playing like a star right now. I mean, to be able to, and I saw somebody on Twitter, I don't remember exactly who it was, but somebody had mentioned like basically like Alvin Kamara, basically kind of like that type of player, and I agree. But as I talked about a lot, Kamara had Mark Ingram. So I do think they need to add somebody else. Like I think they need to find that 1B to the 1A there. But Rachaad White, I mean, yeah, he continues on this stretch. He has 3 receiving touchdowns this season, 2 in the last 2 weeks. So has just been fantastic for the Bucs. It's a big reason why this offense has played much better recently. So Rachaad White again didn't go over 100 rushing yards this time, but got the job done. 21 attempts, 89 yards. So and like you said, basically again for the second straight week, pretty much put the game away. Now, I mean, I know the Bucs were up 14 at the time, but like, yeah, like you going forward on fourth down there, like that put the game away. So that they clearly trust him enough to put the ball in his hands and to make sure that he's the guy that ends it for him. So that's all you're hoping for out of your running back there. So yeah, another huge day for number one.
Yeah, and that was a big time conversion on that 4th and 2 as well, because on the third down prior, the Bucs needed 3 yards, and they basically ran the same exact run formation, an inside handoff to Rachaad White out of the shotgun. I didn't like the play call. I don't like a lot of, if you're in need 2 to 3 yards, I feel like when you run out of the shotgun, you just add an extra yard or 2 to that total tally. But they go to it again in 4th down, and it ends up working. Ultimately keeps the Bucs on top, and they're able to run the game out. Couple of big-time catches today from the second-year tight end, Cade Otton, 2 for 44. Trey Palmer had to catch for 5 yards. And Keeft, the fullback, technically a tight end, but I'm going to call him a fullback. He finds the end zone today, has not seen a target since like the first week of the season. Then it takes him all the way until week 15 in Lambeau for him to get a touchdown on the play-action rollout. Big-time play for number 41. Let's get to some of these phone calls. People have been waiting for a long time, and I appreciate their patience. Our first caller of the show from the 941, you're on the Cannon Fire podcast. What's your name?
Ryan, and I have a question for the Cannon Fire podcast about Baker Mayfield.
Let's do it, man.
So I have a quote I tell people. We lose in spite of Baker Mayfield. The minimum score when we win, the minimum score we put up is 20 points. And I think our secondary, whether it's injuries to Ryan Neal, Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, et cetera, has really hampered our ability to win these games. Even if you look at the Texans game where we gave up that big play that led to the game-winning field goal for the Texans. What are your thoughts on that? Because I see a lot of people talking mess about Baker Mayfield and how he's losing us these games. And in reality, I think it's Todd Bowles and just the lack of defensive coverage in pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, well, you bring up the Houston game, and that's a prime example, right? I mean, the Bucs offense puts up 37 points, and including taking the lead with 46 seconds left, and you lose that game. So, yeah, I mean, the defense is definitely, and like we've talked about it too, the defense is probably the offense and the defense are going in 2 different directions. Like the offense is kind of going up, and this defense is going right down. It's kind of regressing. And I saw a couple of people say, the defense wasn't that bad today. But, I mean, the Packers were able to move the ball quite well. They got the ball past the 50-yard line. Obviously, on their first drive, they couldn't convert on fourth down there. Jordan Love missed the guy. And then also, the other time, they had to go for it on fourth down because they were down 2 scores. So, they were able to move the ball, and that's the concern. So, I definitely think when you play quarterback in the NFL, you're going to get a lot of the credit when you win. And you're going to get a lot of the blame when you lose, even if it's not completely your fault. And I agree that a lot of the Bucs losses that, haven't really been Baker Mayfield's fault. There's been a few times where I do think with a better Baker game, they probably win. But at the same time, there's a lot of reason, that Texans game, that's a prime example. Baker Mayfield's not the reason they lost that game. The offense put up 37 points. But the Detroit game, the Detroit game might have been Baker Mayfield's fault. It might have been that thing.
Yeah,
but I definitely, you're not alone. I don't think you're alone. It's just I think there's people that, are always going to sit there and blame the quarterback when things are bad, even though it may not be 100% on him.
Well, one more thing, too, and I'll just say this about today's performance with the defense. Far too often, Jordan Love had way too much time. A lot of the explosive plays they had today were simply because of just the extended time in the pocket he had to make plays. Only 2 sacks on the day for this defensive line. Felt like it should have been at least 2 more with just all the times that they had him, closing in, couldn't hit home, whether they sent the blitz or not. It's been an issue, and the regression of this defense has been a very active conversation, at least on this podcast. So it's going to be something to monitor throughout the rest of the year. But, luckily the Bucs had a big-time offensive performance today, and Baker was a huge part of that.
Oh yeah, no, and I would hope that if we do get rid of Todd Bowles, we can get some help on the secondary, because Antoine Winfield Jr., as great as he is, cannot cover the entire NFL field. So
yeah,
we might need some guys to come up behind CD3 and Jamel Dean.
absolutely.
We need some sort of draft picks going to definitely our secondary, and also our offensive line. We haven't been playing well in that regard either. However, it's all young guys. You have Tristan Wirfs. I could be wrong. He's the oldest guy on that line outside of Aaron Stinney. I think Aaron Stinney's the only veteran, right?
Yeah, I think you're correct.
So when you have a bunch of young guys, I mean, they're going to mold into each other, But I think blaming, again, saying our O-line sucks with the run block, it's you have a rookie, second-year Tristan Wirfs, second-year center, and then Aaron Stinney. You're not going to get, even average O-line, protection.
Right.
With guys who are practically rookies and sophomores.
Yeah, I think with the cast of characters they've had on that offensive line this year, the fact that they've all started every single game is a testament. But I think they've been better than they certainly could have been this year, but obviously still a lot of work to do based off of that interior offensive line. But we appreciate your call, man. We're going to get to some more people, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Go Bucs.
All right.
All right, let's get to our next call here. We got a lot of people on hold, so we do appreciate you guys hanging on. You're on the Cane of Fire podcast. What's your name?
Woo! Corey, Nashville. Y'all already know what time it is.
What's up, Corey?
Dial that shit up, Dave. That's what that was today. When you got a running back you can throw into a seam route on a pop pass, you got versatility on your offense. And this is why, as fans, we've been so frustrated with our offense, because we know we have the versatility. What I was thinking this offense would look like, it would be a mix between the Saints game, today's game, and the fourth quarter of the Houston game, for example. But instead, what we got was probably the Minnesota game, a mix of the Minnesota game, a mix of the Eagles game, and a mix of the Buffalo game, where it was okay in spots, but it never seemed like we knew what we were capable of. This was the offense that we all pictured and wanted to see manifested when Dave Canales told us he knew how to get the ball to his weapons. Chris Godwin, amazing. He's going to end up with 1,000 yards and probably his worst season to the football eye. To the football eye, he's probably going to end up still with 1,000 yards. Mike Evans is a superstar, and this is the continuation of Mike Evans. This is what's going to continue his career, not making him go across the middle, get those tough catches. He's going to be the one to break the defense off. He's going to score the touchdowns, and Chris Godwin does a lot of the dirty work. But Baker Mayfield, I don't care how many people I can name today, it starts and ends with Baker Mayfield. And this right here is by okay, he won the job. Finally, I get to see it. And I saw it in the Saints game as well. Seen it throughout the season. B, this is why I'm not hard-pressed about drafting a damn rookie quarterback. Personally, this is my rankings on first-rounders. With the way the NFL is today, pass rusher, left tackle, corner. That's where I am with first-round picks. I don't care about quarterbacks because if you look at them statistically, they all look like Bryce Young in their first few years. I'm cool with getting the vet that knows how to play the game, and I get it. People are not sold on Baker, but I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. People are not sold on Baker, but I'm sold on the coaching staff and the talent around him. And that's why I said earlier in this year I was fine with him being our quarterback, in the near future. Is it scanning? All right, thanks. Thanks, man. And sorry, I'm getting my wife's car washed.
Car wash.
Getting food.
but and my last point, man, and this has got to be made. It has to be made. If nothing came, and this is gonna be funny that I'm gonna do a callback to this, but thank God for Raheem Morris. Thank God for Raheem Morris. Without Raheem Morris, I'm not sure we got Levante David. That was his coach, right? Was that his coach?
No, I actually think it was Greg Schiano.
Yeah, 2012 was Greg Schiano.
Thank God.
Shout out Mark Dominic.
Yeah, Mark Dominic.
Shout out Mark Dominic. There we go. That's who came from the Raheem Morris. It was Mark Dominic. Shout out Mark Dominic. Levante David. I'm out of superlatives for this guy. And for people to say his Hall of Fame status is in question, they don't know ball. They don't know ball. You want to put Luke Kuechly as a first ballot Hall of Famer, fine. But you know what you're looking at in that situation? A Texas-Alabama situation. You can't put Luke Kuechly in there from the same draft class as first ballot and tell me Levante ain't no Hall of Famer. You can't do it.
I agree.
You just cannot do it. And I got so much to say, but that's my call. I can go all day. I love you guys. Thank you for allowing me to vent. Go Bucs. I said we were going to go 4-0. I called it. I put it on Twitter. I said it. I might not have been the first person to say it, but I said it. And I really believe we're going to be one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs. I don't know what happens then. I don't know what happens. But let's be honest. Philadelphia don't look like world beaters, guys. They didn't even look like world beaters when we played them in Tampa. They didn't look like world beaters. They were just better than what we were that day. But they don't look like world beaters. I'm just going to throw that out there. I love you guys. See you next week. Well, hear from me next week.
Love you, Corey.
Thanks,
Great call. Go Bucs, man.
Always a good call. Yeah. Always a good call from Corey.
We got
even
one more
when
person. One more person.
I believe he was in the car wash, so.
Let me see. Hello. You're on the Can of Fire podcast. What's your name?
Oh, hi, I'm Steven.
Hey, Steven.
What's
going on, man?
Not much.
How you feeling about the game?
Oh, sorry, my speaker wasn't on.
Say that again?
Yeah, my speaker. Yeah, that was a crazy game. Baker Mayfield pulled through.
I agree. It was a very crazy game. Luckily, the Bucs came out on top, and they are 7-7. But Steven, we do appreciate your call. I'm not really sure where that was going, but I'm going to go ahead and put a stop to it before it gets too far out of hand. But thank you for holding. I truly do appreciate you. Just sometimes you got to, keep your head on a swivel. Maybe be more prepared next time. That's okay.
Ooh.
That's okay. We haven't talked a lot about the defense today, Evan. We've talked a lot about the offense. We talked a little bit about the defense, but I wanted to dive some more into your thoughts overall of what they looked like today for Tampa Bay, because, again, we can talk about an underperforming pass rush. I do think there were a couple of moments in this game where just too comfortable letting Green Bay drive down the field the way that they did, especially the chunk plays that they were able to pick up, some miscommunication, some guys out of position, a couple of breakdowns here and there. So I know that it was a winning effort, and when you have an offense that's firing on all cylinders, you can get away with that. But again, another week in a row where it seems like the offense is trending upwards and the defense just not as good today as they were, let's say to start the season.
Yeah, and it's just like we talked about, the defense and offense are going in two separate directions here. And so everybody said, okay, the defense only allowed 20 points. Jordan Love was 29-39 for 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a pass rating of 111.5 and 0 turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget as well, they go for it on 4th down early in the game, and it's a Jordan Love miscue. Like, it was less of an impressive play from the defense and more of just Jordan Love not playing well. He was off target a couple of times today, and I'm not going to say the Bucs got bailed out because of it, but certainly there was one touchdown that they got away with on a 4th down stop there because Jordan Love was just inaccurate.
Yeah. Thought you were going to call him an a-hole there. I thought that's where I was going. That's the way you said, because Jordan Love was just an asshole.
Spit it out, Junior. I was sitting there stuttering. You didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. Jordan Love missed that guy on fourth down. Had a few other misses early in the game, but yeah, and I think that the big thing about this is the pass rush, and I think you mentioned it earlier that he had a lot of time to find guys. I mean, he definitely did, and um, I mean, Tavian Wicks really did a good job against the Bucs. 6 catches, 97 yards. Tucker Kraft really killed him too. I mean, Aaron Jones only had 13 carries for 53 yards, and I'm surprised they went away from him as early as they did. I understand they were down for a good bit of the game, but they were only down multiple scores for a very short period of time. So I was surprised that they that they went away from that because early in the game I was like, oh man, I was like, this is gonna be like the Aaron Jones show. I was like, they don't really have much of an answer for him, but then they went away from that and put the ball in Love's hands more, and it didn't really work out for him. But I mean, yeah. The defense has given up too many yards. Like I said, the Packers, yeah, they marched all the way down the field the first time, and then they also had to go for it on fourth down that other time. So, even though the 20 points looks good, if you watch the game, this defense was not very good today, and they did have the turnover there at the end on that fourth down. So I said no turnovers. I lied. It was one turnover, but by that point the game was pretty much over anyway. And it's just something to where this defense, it feels like if they're not forcing turnovers, if they're not getting sacks, it feels like they really struggle to contain teams' offenses. And I mean, you got a better quarterback than Jordan Love coming in next week and Trevor Lawrence. So even Derek Carr from the Saints. Derek Carr I know it's against the Giants, but Derek Carr looked pretty good today. So you're going to have to play better these next 2 weeks. And I mean, the Falcons the Falcons lost to the Panthers today.
Yeah.
The Panthers kicked the field goal right at the end to beat the Falcons. So it looks like this is going to be a 2-team race for the NFC South. It's the Bucs and the Saints. And that means that game in Tampa in 2 weeks against the Saints is going to be just massive.
Oh.
But I mean, the good thing for the Bucs, if you're still in the want to make the playoffs no matter what kind of deal, the win today actually helps, even if they don't win the division. They might be a wild card team.
Not a lot of people are talking about this. I know we've made this point a few times already this week, but it is a historic amount of mid in the NFC right now. Headed into this weekend, there were 6 teams in the conference with a 6-7 record, and luckily for the Bucs, who just got to 7-7, like you said, a win today over the team who had the number 7 seed. It's going to go a long way for their wild card chances if a division victory is not the way that they get in.
Yeah. So if you're a person who, I personally I think hanging your hat on the division winner is more important. But if you're a person who just wants to make the playoffs, that's something that you could look forward to. And yeah, I mean, again, the defense didn't play well. We're not going to harp on it too much. We have all week to harp on it. They need to play better. Obviously, if the Bucs want to still make the playoffs, because I don't think they're out of the woods yet. They could very easily. We predicted, okay, if you predicted losses against Green Bay and Jacksonville, and then wins against New Orleans and Carolina, okay, it can still happen. Losses against Jacksonville and New Orleans and a win against Carolina. You're still 2-2. And at that rate, you may not make the playoffs. Who knows? So they definitely need to play better down the stretch. But I mean, look, you can't count on the offense to do what they did today every single game. So and obviously history and what we know about this offense has shown you that's not likely anyway. So but the defense, I think. It did help that they bent at times but didn't break. And I mean, the first touchdown they gave up was off a turnover, sure. The Packers got the ball right down there. But the defense is giving up too many yards still. And it's not against better teams, it's not going to work. And against better teams, when your offense isn't scoring 34 points and getting 8, 9, 10, 20 plus yard plays a game, that's not going to fly, So against teams even like Philly, or I know they've struggled, but I mean, even like Dallas, or I mean, definitely San Francisco, even like Detroit, that stuff's not going to fly. So the defense definitely has to improve and just start forcing a little bit more turnovers, get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. Because with these better quarterbacks, if you don't pressure them, Jordan Love made you eat it a few times a day. really good quarterbacks are going to be even worse on you. So the defense, that's really the two complaints I have: the lack of turnovers and the lack of pass rush. I know everybody wants to complain about the secondary. I get it. The secondary has been disappointing, but at the same time, in today's NFL, like it's tough to play defense as an NFL corner right now, man. Yeah, the NFL, just the rules, and I'm not making excuses for any of these guys, but like it helps so much when you have a consistent pass rush. It's amazing how much it helps your secondary, and and how much it exposes your secondary when you don't have that. So I do think that's a key down the stretch here, is trying to fix that pass rush.
An opportunity at home against a better quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but also an opportunity to get healthy in that defensive backfield as well. We talk about the underperformance from the secondary, but you can't talk about that without mentioning the injuries as well. Jamel Dean finally back in the mix. He missed a couple of games. No Carlton Davis this week. And then obviously we talked about Devin White being a healthy scratch for seemingly the rest of the season. I don't know how much effect that has had on the linebacker room, but the consistency of KJ Britt still yet to be seen. He has looked good 2 weeks in a row, but can he do it 3, 4, 5, potentially 6 weeks in a row? I don't know. We will have to wait and see. But 3 games left on the schedule for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who now sit at 7-7, first place in the NFC South for another week in a row. Man, oh man, I know that. I hate that the Bucs have made me do this so many times this year, where I feel like I have to come on the podcast and eat crow. But I came on the podcast after the Colts game, and I kind of said, like, I don't have much hope in this team this year. I really don't. I said before this game on the game preview show with Mike Wall, former Packer, I said it's hard to trust the Bucs this year. I didn't pick them to win because I didn't feel like I could trust them. I'm not saying that relationship has been repaired all the way, because they're still kind of hard to trust.
Yeah, no, they're definitely hard to trust. I mean, it's the defense. It, like, when they were up or whatever. They were up 10. They were up 20-10, and I think it might have been a tweet from Luke Easterling that said, like, yeah, but like with how the Bucs defense has been, like a 10-point lead feels like a 3-point lead. Like it feels like it just go away like that. We saw it in Atlanta last week. They had a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter, and it went away like that. Like this defense, I think, sort of, and the fact that you don't know, like, okay, maybe you won't get this level of production on offense every week, but like, are you going to get like how it was against New Orleans, like that production, or are you going to get how it was against like brutal, like Detroit or, stuff like that? Like, is that like, what offense are you going to get? And I think that's why it's still hard to know exactly what Bucs team you're getting here.
I think after an offensive performance today, though, this is what they have been working for all season. And there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that the offense is going to look like this every single week for the rest of the year, because this
most likely won't.
This has been 15 weeks in the making. So I will say, my hopes are a little bit higher. I feel better about this team potentially stacking wins, because I didn't expect them to win today. I really did not.
Well, and also it's the way they won.
It is the way they won. It was the first convincing win that they have had all year.
I mean, I think New Orleans was pretty convincing, but that's the New Orleans and Tennessee, like those are the two. So that's 3 of their 7 wins, I think, have been like pretty convincing. Like, it's not like, oh, they won, but they probably shouldn't have. Like, those ones are probably the ones where
I think next week is going to be all end all to decide how hot I am on this Bucs team to end the season, because you have a superior quarterback in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence.
A superior team, like Jacksonville's better.
Right. You are playing them at home, but whenever the Bucs have played a vastly superior team this season, they have crumbled. They have. I would like to not see that. If they lose next week, it's going to depend on how they lose. If it's a 3-point game that was competitive till the end, that's one thing. But if you get absolutely ran in your home stadium, like you have several times before,
on Christmas Eve,
a week before my birthday, man, then I don't know how much faith I will have moving forward. But regardless, I don't care. As of right now, I care about today's win. The Bucs are 7-7, 500 yet again here in late December. You love to see it.
And the first time, just like you said on the game preview show, first time they've won 3 straight since 2021. So a big win for Todd Bowles, obviously. I still don't think, and look, I'm not going to say this every week because I've made it very clear. I don't even think he's safe if he makes the playoffs. Like, I think if they get ran in the playoffs, like, I think, I don't know how safe his job is, but a big win to go into Lambeau and win this type of game it is pretty big. And, to be able to the offensive production that you had. Yeah, the Packers defense isn't great, but the offensive production that you had was just, darn near perfect. And Baker Mayfield had a perfect passer rating. So, it was a really good game. And will it be that way the whole time? No. Like, the offense is probably not going to be that productive again. Because honestly, like, the Tom Brady Bucs offenses, even in 2021, sometimes weren't that productive. Like, that's an insane production. Like, there's a lot of production there. So, I do think that that's why I'm saying I think the defense has to play better, right? Because you can't rely on 34 points from your offense every time. But Jacksonville is a better team. They're a better football team. But they can be beaten. And Trevor Lawrence is definitely not going to be 100% healthy. Yeah. So like, they can be beaten. Will it be difficult? Yes. But like, it's not impossible. It's not like you got the 49ers coming here, or even like the Dallas Cowboys right now coming here, like, or like the freaking 85 Bears. Like they can be a team that's beaten. They are a good team, but you can take advantage of it. So the Bucs are going to have to play well, but it is a game they're going to have a shot in. And like you said, that's 100% right. I think, and I think you speak for a lot of the fan base. I think a lot of them are in this boat where even if you lose, like, they don't have to win, right? Like, even in the grand scheme of things, this is against an AFC opponent. It's obviously non-divisional. It's not even in the conference. Like, if you're going to lose one more game down the stretch, like, you'd prefer it be this one. Like, it doesn't really impact you much in terms of tiebreaker and stuff inside the conference or division. So, but it's losing by 3 or losing by 14. Losing by 7 or losing by 17. Like, there's a big difference, and I think fans' confidence and hope with this team will go up, even if they lose. If they lose 24-21, I think fans are going to say, you know what, didn't win, but battled, and all eyes on New Orleans in the next week. So I think that's where you're kind of at right now with that game.
452 total yards of offense today for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and their big time win in Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers. Once again, 34-20, your final score. And folks, that's just about going to do it for this week's post-game episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you to all of our callers. Always great to hear from you, Corey. Sorry to Steven. Sometimes you just got to be a little more prepared, my man. It's all right. We'll get you next time. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Check out his written work at BucsNation.com. What have you got this week?
Yeah, so obviously going to be doing the Q&A with the Jaguars SB Nation site, as well as having the X Factor. I wasn't able to get out this week, time crunch, and just ran out of days. So we'll definitely have it out this week, X Factor, obviously, for a pretty big game. Not necessarily, like I said, within the Bucs for the division or anything like that. That comes the following week against New Orleans. But a big game, I think, for Bucs fans' confidence and their psyche, I think, with this team. So it's sort of a pretty good measuring stick after 3 straight wins. But 3 straight wins against, 1, the Carolina Panthers, 2, the team that just lost to the Panthers, and then 3, the team that lost to the Giants last week. So even though 2 of them were on the road, you do want to see a better, a pretty solid showing against Jacksonville this week.
I want to extend some well wishes to our good buddy James Hill, a.k.a. Mr. Bucs Nation. I had to fill in on his game day live stream today because he is dying, apparently. I don't know what's going on.
I was just about to say he's not dying. But
he's not dying. He should be okay. But, I mean, man, he woke up today with a fever of like 104 degrees. He's been on heavy medication and heavy bed rest most of the day. You think, what are you going to say?
He's fine.
Oh, are you saying he's being a little dramatic?
He'll be fine. I'm not saying he's faking it, but he'll live. It's okay.
Well, I don't know about Evan, but I want to extend some well wishes to our good buddy James Hill.
It's all about people who have listened to the show for a long time know the bit. So
of course. Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter at Redicus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We will talk to you guys later this week as we look ahead to the Buccaneers contest at home against the visiting Jacksonville Jaguars. But three wins in a row feels pretty damn good, so we're going to hang on to this win and take it into Victory Monday. We'll talk to you guys later this week. We appreciate you listening. Thank you again to all the callers and all the new subscribers. It has been an awesome Sunday. Looking forward to the next one. 3 games left for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm your host, Rhett Matthews, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you in the next one. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.